very much. I appreciate the introduction, Jay, and I appreciate the hospitality that you're giving me and the opportunity to share what I'm doing and what Vendux is doing. Um, Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Henning Schweenum. I am the co-founder of Vendux. We're based in Kansas City, Missouri. And during my career, I've spent the last 20 some years as a global nomad, building, leading, transforming sales teams around the world. And I did that in a variety of companies, large, medium, small, and different products and services. And all throughout this career, I grew an appreciation for sales leadership and the value that sales leadership brings to an organization. And so that led me to start Vendux as a business last year. And we're coming up to our 1 year anniversary on August the 9th. Vendux is a matchmaker between available sales executives and an organization that has a void in their sales leadership. And we fill this void around three cornerstones. The first one is that we place individuals typically within days, not more than a week. We place them, secondly, as seasoned executives. They come with an average of about 20 years of sales leadership experience. And the third one is we place them as 1099 contractors. And they come in for an interim or fractional period, which would be something like 6 months or 2 days a week for 12 months. It's always interim, and it always is to fill a gap that exists. In doing what we're doing, we're not a consultant because while our executives understand there's a problem, they go in and become part of the organization to solve it. We're not a recruiter because we work off an existing roster of available executives. And we're not a temp agency because while we place people on a temporary contractual basis, we only focus on one role, the head of the sales team, the sales leader, the VP or SVP of sales, a CSO or CRO. The obvious question is, why is there a need for a matchmaker in sales leadership? And I always start by saying that very few products sell themselves. Most of them require that there is a well-led sales team that reaches out to potential clients. And there is a problem in this market when in 2018, 57% of the sales reps missed their quotas. When executive recruiting takes 6 to 9 months, when the medium tenure of a sales leader in the US in 2018 was only 2.5 years. And it gets worse when it's the first VP that a company hires. Because if it's the first one, the tenure is somewhere between 12 and 18 months. And then they get fired and the company starts over again. And so under this scenario, in 2018, 35,000 sales executive positions in the US became vacant. And this number grows because the medium tenure is shrinking. There is a trend towards the gig economy overall. And while most people are familiar with the concept of a fractional CFO or CTO, the fractional interim sales leader is a lesser known concept and a lesser known solution. So based on all these factors, we're assuming that this opportunity will double over the next 5 to 10 years. So if there are 70,000 positions that become vacant every year, the question is, who is the ideal client for Vendux? And we're looking at 3 distinct profiles. The first one, it's a scale-up business. So it's a business that has built a product that has proven the salability of the product. They're past the startup phase. They maybe just got their Series B investment, and now they're ready to grow. The second scenario would be companies who are looking to expand by exporting for the very first time. And the third one would be a mid-sized business where either physically or from a skill set perspective, there is a void in that leadership. And an example from the list of logos you see here is a Kansas City-based software provider where the founder and a couple of developers built a great product, launched it 2 years ago. They now generate about $1 million in revenue. The founder has already hired and fired 2 sales reps and is now looking for a path to build a successful sales team. But her expertise is not in sales leadership. And so we were able to help by placing a fractional sales leader into her organization a couple of months ago. So we're not the only company who does what we're doing. There are others that provide this matchmaking. Most of them are either consulting or recruiting, executive recruiting companies that have branched out and added this service. The biggest competition, though, comes from what I would label as ignorance. The fact that many founders, owners, CEOs, board members are not aware that this solution exists. They don't think of a sales leader to be available on an interim or fractional basis. And so when an organization runs into a situation where they need a new skill set, they either go for executive recruiting, for sales training, or they bring in consultants. And so that's the competition, quote unquote, that we go against. And our go-to-market is focused on converting those ignorant. Being a matchmaker, we obviously focus on 2 sides. We need to build a roster of executives, and currently we have 135 sales executives on our roster. And on the other hand, we obviously need to build a base of opportunities where we can place those executives. And so we're doing that by trying to build brand and recognition, and by creating a network of opportunities. And so we focus our go-to-market on places where likely clients or the ideal clients are congregating. So we're connecting with growth investors and VCs that invest in businesses. We leverage networks like 1 Million Cups or other startup communities. We leverage networks and partnerships with fractional CFO groups or recruiters or consultants or trainers. And through those, we are able to identify assignment opportunities for our executives. At this point, I look forward to your questions. Thank you for your attention so far, and I'd love to entertain your questions now.
Well, I have one. Is this a startup, or has it been up running for a while? About what phase is it in?
Yeah, we founded this business. We started this business in August of last year, so we're about a year old.
Okay. Thank you.
So I feel like with sales, the person who's doing the selling needs to know the product or service really well. Do you find it difficult for the people who are doing these interim roles to really like know the company and know what they're selling? I'm not like a seller, so I don't really have that kind of mindset or experience. I'm just curious what you think about that.
Yeah. So my answer has 2 parts. The first part is that we're talking about the sales leader, not the salesperson. And if you're the sales leader and you focus on your leadership role, you don't need to be the person who knows the product the best. You need to be the person who understands what's required to be successful in selling. What type of sales process do you want? What type of collateral do you need? How do you want to capture the sales activity and track it? That's sales leadership responsibility. The other part of the answer is that the key to success of an interim role is in finding the perfect candidate. So if there would be a vacancy or an opportunity in Iowa City, I'm not just looking for a sales executive in Iowa City. I'm looking for someone who has worked in the same or similar industry, who has sold same or similar products or services, who has sold same or similar deal sizes, who has managed same or similar sales processes, and a number of other criteria that I'm using to match and find the perfect fit for this role. Because if you have someone who has done all that already, you have someone who can step right in and be effective from day one.
Yeah, Henning, I have a question. Why does the company need, I mean, you were talking about companies that are growing. So why would it need like an executive in sales for only a couple of days, or, and not full time, in which, he can concentrate on the growth and on the development of the company, which is, during the initial period, it's what you have to concentrate on.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I always point at the fractional CFO because that's a well-known concept. If you're in, if you're a company, you probably don't need a full-time CFO until you have 150 or 200 employees and an organization of that size. And what happens if companies hire CFOs sooner, those people aren't actually CFOs, they're more like accountants. And they also oversee human resources. So what you have is you hire somebody with CFO qualifications, pay them accordingly, and they do less qualified work. And the same applies on the sales leadership side. So and I say this out of my own experience, I was hired by a startup out of Overland Park, Kansas, to build their sales organization in Europe. And I was given the title of GM. When the first 4 years of that venture, I spent 80% of my time as an individual contributor, as a salesperson selling. And only 20% of the time was my GM, my leadership skill required. So in hindsight, it would have been a lot better for the startup to say, I get someone 1 day or 2 days a week to do the leadership activities. And then I can, I free up payroll and I can add 1 or 2 more salespeople that actually do the legwork on the street or that pick up the phone and make the calls. A VP of sales that is doing the work of an individual contributor is a really expensive resource that just doesn't pay his or her way if you think about
it. Thank you. Just one more question. In this case, when you're having an interim person, actually he's concentrated, he's accountable for what he's coming in, not sales. Do you see that there are some problems in that person not being, let's say, pushed toward cross-functional interactions with the others of the company, because he's really concentrated on a certain part of the company and not globally?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have to say I haven't seen this problem so far in the 1 year that I've been in business. I guess if you match the wrong personality into a business, that may occur. The one thing that I always find when I compare a W-2 employee and a 1099 contractor is that this 1099 contractor, their future is dependent, really dependent on being successful because they rely on referrals and they rely on their reputation to find the next gig. And I find that, and I had a discussion with a business owner 2 days ago that where I placed an interim executive a few months ago, and he commented specifically on this point where he said, this guy you put in, Steve, he's not just focused on sales. He just just agreed to a contract, but he wasn't willing to sign it for, and make this number up, for 20 million parts. He only was willing to make it for 1 million because we don't have the manufacturing capabilities. And now he's turning around and finding manufacturing capabilities. So if you have someone whose livelihood depends on reputation and who comes with the experience of having worked in this space and having made other companies successful in this space, then I don't think you need to be concerned that they are narrowly focused on their sliver of responsibility within the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, and I'm going to hope that I've got an appointment walking in at 9:30, so I'm hoping that I can hear the answer before I have to step away. Now, with the fractional part of it, would one of your executives have more than one account that they're leading, or do they just have one single company that they're focused on for that period of time?
No, they have multiple, or they can have multiple. Yes.
Okay. Second, I'm intrigued by the name. I'm just curious where it came from and how you came up with it.
Well, it's a play on two Latin words. Venditio is sales and dux is leadership.
Love it.
Thank you.
And then the try to buy. So if it is a perfect match for a company or a startup, can they purchase, or can they bring that person on full-time as someone with them?
Yes. And that's a very sort of built-in option into the model. It's you could call it try before you buy, though that's not always on the mindset of the owner or CEO engaging us or engaging one of our executives. But the business owner I was talking about earlier that I spoke with 2 days ago, the purpose of his call was to move forward in transitioning him from a 1099 to a W-2 full-time employee. And we built this into our contracts. There's a little fee involved to do that, and then the person becomes a W-2 employee.
That's fantastic. Excellent. And then I used to live in Overland Park, so that's a great area. Do you work with Mid-American Angels at all?
I work with them not directly. I am friends with a couple of the investors that are part of the group, and I'm also a mentor at the Enterprise Center of Johnson County, ECJC, and several of the angels are also mentors. So that's a very tight personal connection as opposed to formally working with them. But they know about Vendux, and I've talked to several of them about some of the portfolio companies that they have invested in.
Yeah, I think that would be a really nice referral availability for them to see a need in a company and then have trusted source to send them to.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's fantastic.
Is there compensation based on milestones typically or not?
It can be. It really depends on where the company wants to go in what time period. If it's an interim that comes in for 6 months because there is a gap or there is a specific need to accomplish something, like build out a sales process, or establish a well-functioning CRM, or build out um, a lead qualification team, then it's sometimes difficult to have milestones to agree to. The more common way to compensate an interim would be on a daily fee basis. And because it's 1099, there is always the opportunity to cancel the contract if things are not working out and if goals aren't being accomplished or milestones being accomplished.
Any other questions? As you're all thinking, I know I have one. So, this, as someone who's working on a couple startups, we're not really at the point where we would need a dedicated sales C-level salesperson. I'm just kind of wondering how did you come up with the idea for this? Is your background in sales, or are you an entrepreneur before this, or just interesting to hear this?
Yeah, well, it's both. I spent the last 20 some years building, running, transforming sales teams. So that is my background, and that's how over those years I've seen my share of really good and really bad sales leadership. And I've experienced, as I mentioned earlier, the situations where a sales leader wasn't really a sales leader, and all of these aspects of where I think someone coming in interim or fractionally is just the better solution and the better choice, and that led me to start this business. It's my first co-founder situation. However, when I started working for this startup in Overland Park, and they asked me to build their sales in their business over in Europe, I always thought of myself as an entrepreneur because I was there by myself building this, that I never thought of myself as an employee. I always thought of myself as a founder or co-founder, and the actual founder of the business looked at me the same way. So in that regards, it's my second time around, and I can tell you it's really helpful because the first time around, we started the business right when the dot-com bubble burst, and we worked right through through 9/11, and we worked through the financial crises. So I'm really glad I have that experience and can apply that to my work now with Vendux.
Yes.
How's everything going with COVID?
For about 3 months, all companies were focused on getting rid of people, not interested and focused on adding staff. And it didn't really matter whether it was a contractor or a full-time employee. And that 99% of the businesses were trying to get rid of people. And so it did dry up our entire pipeline that we had built, and we didn't see any activity in 3 months. For the last 4 weeks, maybe by now 5 or 6 weeks, it's been different. There's been activity. We've placed people since, and it's not where we were in February, and it's not where we wanted to be based on our original business plan. But I feel very confident that we'll be able to make it through, and it'll just be a longer growth curve to build the business to, to the size that we want it to be.
Can you give us an example of, one of your success stories?
Yes, it's the one I've referred to that one before. Yes, it's a company out in San Diego. They were highly technical, three tech founders. They developed a product for the automotive aftermarket that would increase the lifetime of that part fivefold. So it's a really significant step. They had it tested multiple times, ran trials, got patents, but they never got sales off the ground. They had hired salespeople and also a VP of sales before, and let them all go. I placed an interim there right before COVID, and that person brought the commercial mindset into the organization that was missing. And it's someone we don't want to talk about age, but it's someone who said, when I came to him, who said, I have one more thing in me. And when he looked at this, he said, that's the one thing I want to do. And every time I touch base with him or touch base with one of the tech founders, they just rave, and they really look at it as something that has been a game changer. So in the 3-4 months since he was placed, he's built and signed contracts with 2 of the largest automotive parts distributors or retail chains here in the country. They're talking to a couple of the large fleets, like the Amazon van or the Amazon fleet of vans, and some others. And they're the ones who are now switching this guy from a 1099 to a W-2 full-time employee. And I can't really talk about the company name because I am under an NDA not to do that. They don't want to have their name out there as of yet.
Any other questions? I guess I've got one left before our final question. So, in the era of COVID-19, it's really hard to plan for the future. So, do you think kind of a setup like what you have through Vendux, is that maybe the future of hiring some of these positions for startups, or do you think we're going to end up going back to the more traditional model?
With or without COVID, I think there is room for this solution in the market. If you think about all the positions, the functions, the jobs that have moved into the gig space, then probably sales leadership is one of the last things. There are probably more fractional CEOs out there than there are fractional CSOs or VPs of sales. So sales is one of those last functions that gets involved in the gig economy, becomes available as the gig economy. So I don't think that COVID has any impact or any any significant change, supporting or making this model less attractive. Now I'm trying to position and market it as something that is an easier way to go back into a growth mode for an organization post-COVID. But in the long run, I do believe that it's just a matter of time before this model becomes and would have become more prevalent. For me as a founder, or for Vendux as a startup company, COVID is a challenge, and we managed our available funds. Early in the pandemic, we were able to get a PPP loan, and worked with the SBA, our SBA lender, to extend the terms of the SBA loan that we took out. And so, we took all these measures, and it was all in anticipation that the development process for the business will simply take longer than it would normally have.
Sure.
What does your team look like? Not your 1099s, the people that you're sending out into other companies, but what does your immediate team look like?
At this point, I'm the only full-time person on the team. I contract marketing services. My co-founder works in a different business and is a silent co-founder. I have my wife involved in the business, helping out with her time. So that's the makeup and size of the team. More recently, I've also contracted out software development. We launched a first version of our matching software last week, but that was all contract development as well. So the immediate team is really just me at this point, and everything else is contracted.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Any other questions before I ask my final question? Not hearing any. I'll go ahead and ask our traditional final question here at 1MC Iowa City. What can we as the community do to help you?
Well, it's the first help is just being a community of entrepreneurs or people supporting entrepreneurs. I always feel like come to 1 Million Cups as a startup, but I also come because I offer a service that is helping other startups or may help other startups down the road when they become bigger. And so I always appreciate the opportunity, and that's the first help that you're providing me by lending me now 40 minutes of your time to allow me to introduce the concept. Beyond that, if you know of a business that struggles in sales, or if you own a business that struggles, I always love to have conversations. They don't always lead to an interim or fractional assignment for Vendux, but I like to have those conversations to explore, and I'm available to consult or to mentor or look at an organization and provide my thoughts and my advice as well. And so if you own a business, or if you know of a business that struggles, I'd love to have a conversation. Just reach out to me by email or phone, and we'll schedule a time.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your presentation, and